Daniel Jesus with Corpus Christi Originals. In this podcast, we had the pleasure of having Renita Newton, who is the owner of Ree's Sweets and Savories. She also has working on her doctorate in counselor education. And we just have a chat. If you're interested in that, stay tuned to the podcast. Okay, we're live. Welcome to the show, Renita.
Hello.
I like that name, by the way, Renita.
Thank you. It's pretty unique.
Awesome. So, Renita Newton, that's awesome. So, you're from Louisiana originally.
I am born and raised there all my life, and then I moved here to Corpus about 6 years ago this year.
Okay, cool. So, you moved on behalf of.
For me, it was school. So to
Yeah.
do the master's program at the university.
Oh, okay. So, did like the school being like on an island attract you to over here, or I mean, why Corpus?
Well, the story to that is sort of long. Short end of it is that I had a friend who also was moving to Corpus at the time to teach here at Veterans,
Hmm.
well, Moody at first, and then she ended up teaching at Veterans. And I was at the same time as she was looking for jobs, looking for graduate programs, and I was not going to come to Corpus. I was
Hmm.
actually going to Illinois
Hmm.
because my cousin lives in Chicago,
Oh.
and I had applied for the university that was in Carbondale.
Oh wow.
And so that's where I was going to go. I had gotten accepted and everything. But it was my friend talking to me. She says, why don't you look and to see, if Corpus Christi has, master's programs in counseling.
Hmm.
Sure enough, I looked.
Hmm.
And A&M Corpus did have a master's in counseling program. And so I applied, got accepted, and everything I should say was really quick with them. I actually drove to Corpus for the interview. It was an 8-hour drive. I remember that whole thing. And
Hmm.
um, it was real quick. Like on the way home from the interview was a quick turnaround trip. I remember checking my email. I wasn't driving, so I was checking my email, not driving and checking emails. But I saw that they had accepted me, and so I was like, "Wow, that was really quick." I just interviewed
Hmm.
the day before, and I had already gotten an acceptance letter
Hmm.
sent to me, emailed, and so I said, "Okay." Well, at that time, I was still waiting on Carbondale. I hadn't heard back from them just yet.
Hmm.
And I ended up getting accepted there. But by the time they accepted me, sent me everything, I was already planning to move to Corpus. I had accepted
Hmm.
housing, did financial aid, all that sort of stuff. And so it was just real quick and easy. And then, Carbondale took a little bit longer. And I was eager to go ahead and make the transition, make the move while I wasn't that scared,
Hmm.
to leave my family 8 hours away or something like that. So I was like, let's just go ahead and do it.
Hmm.
So I moved out here. My friend moved out here. We stayed together for a little bit.
Hmm.
Then she moved to Dallas, so she's doing well there, and I stayed here. So that's how I got here and how I've been staying here for the past 6 years.
Awesome. So,
Almost.
are you planning on staying here for a while, or I mean, do you look that far ahead, or how does that work for you?
I tried to see, you know, what is out there on the horizon, explore my options.
Hmm.
I have to say for right now, yes. But lately, Austin has been calling out to me,
Hmm.
so that could potentially be one of the next spots. I'm not too sure just yet, but it is
Yeah.
a place of interest as of right now that I can see myself going, thriving, making a new life over there as well for
Yeah.
right now. So,
Yeah. So does like yeah. So does your career and your like your entrepreneurial stuff have a factor into that choice to decide to move?
definitely so. There's UT Austin there. If
Hmm.
I did decide once I'm done with my degree to go into the field of, professorship,
Mm.
to teach, I've been looking at universities, just potential of like where I would want to go
Hmm.
if I decided to go that route. And then for sure, like business wise, the markets that I have done there have been very kind, very culturally, just it's a
Hmm.
whole vibe for me,
Yeah. Cool.
culturally accepting. And so, if I had to move or had the opportunity to move there within a certain time frame, then that would be one of the places for sure for both work and school
Nice. That's awesome.
and
So,
business.
so how much of a culture shock was it for you coming over here from where you're from? Where you're originally from, Hammond,
Yeah. So,
Louisiana?
yeah, it was very much different. Uh,
Hmm.
Not so much different in the sense of like people, but food wise, just it being a bigger city. Like my city is about
Hmm.
21,000.
Mm-hmm.
take, and to have 300,000 plus people um, taking a freeway everywhere. I was like, SPID, what is that? Uh, I tell people, I'm like, we only have like, two-way roads. We have red lights everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You take your interstate I-10 or whatever, but to constantly use like something like SPID to get to just one side of town to the other, that's not really common uh, where I'm from. And then just, food and like
Mm.
HEB. I love that store.
Wow, cool.
Like we need one back home because I fell in love with HEB when I moved here.
Why do
So
you
it's
like HEB?
like that. I think just because it's different.
Mm.
Um, it's a bit better than Walmart.
Mm.
We have like Albertsons and like Rouse's,
Mm.
those types of grocery markets, but I don't know, like you just have like a whole like little shopping store inside of the HEB. It's like
Mm.
everything in there,
Cool,
um,
cool.
to me. So yeah, pretty different in terms of like a supermarket or a grocery store.
Yeah, awesome. I was listening to your interview with Brittany Mute on Leading Ladies. Guys,
Um,
go check that out if you haven't checked it out. And y'all talking about your palate, your taste palette,
yeah.
how different it is from Louisiana as opposed to here. And you mentioned there's a major difference there. And I wanted to mention, like, I worked with some people from New Orleans before,
Uh-huh.
and I love no people from New Orleans because, like, they're like you're kind of like, yeah, Texas, y'all got y'all's thing. That's all. It's cool. But we
Right.
got our own over here too. You know what I mean? I love it about Louisiana. Do you feel yourself going back there or?
I like
Um,
to go back and visit for
yeah.
sure. I don't know. I believe, whatever God's plan is, like
Mm,
I say Austin, right? But it could be going back home. I'm not too sure. I'm just like whatever God's plan is, that's the way that I want to go. So if he does have me to go back home, then, I
mm,
can't argue with that.
yeah.
But my plan is to just kind of visit and then continue, moving around to see where, I plant myself. But if I had a choice, it would just be to visit, not
Yeah.
necessarily to go back and live there. But you never know.
Awesome. Yeah. So you mentioned God. That. So I would imagine that has effect on your lifestyle now, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So how much of it has it always been that way for you, or did something happen to, you know what I mean? What's that story?
Oh, how did I, develop my, I guess, love or my faith back.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, if I can recall, I might have been 11 or 12 when I got baptized.
Mm,
Oak Grove Memorial Church of Christ Holiness USA, back in Hammond, Louisiana.
mm,
Pastor John W. Burr Sr. Has been my pastor all my life growing up. He was my mom's pastor, my grandma's pastor.
mm,
So, I just grew up in that church. And so, that started the foundation, and then just through just different life experiences, for me, it's I know that there is someone, God,
mm,
who has orchestrated, who has been so gracious to just bless me with, all that I have, even in the midst of adversities and trials and challenges
mm,
and triumphs and victories too.
mm.
There have been many of both for me in my life at such a short time. Um, and so I just believe like just having that foundation and then continuing to go to church. I grew up in church. The older I got, I sort of, drifted away a little bit. But then,
Mhm,
you come back. But I've always been grounded in my faith. And so I think, definitely life experiences, things that I've gone through, lets me know, like, God is definitely real. He's definitely an anchor for me,
mm,
um, in all that I do, when things are good, when things are bad. Um, Definitely someone that I can turn to in the midst of those wins and losses, I guess you could say. So, yeah, faith has been very important to me. It's definitely been one of the main things driving what I do, why I do
mm,
what I do. And while I hope and pray to continue doing what I'm doing. So, yeah,
mhm.
if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good stuff. So, man, I had a thought there. So what's something that you say is like that you're struggling with now that you feel like he's gonna help you through?
Definitely the dissertation.
Nice.
Working on a PhD is definitely not a small feat by any means.
Mm,
recommend all of my colleagues who are going through the same process right now,
Mm.
who have gone before me with this process. It's definitely one that is a battle of the mind and the heart, the body, all of it.
Mm.
Is definitely something that has taken a toll. I guess I would say in like all areas, mentally, physically, emotions are definitely a huge factor as well.
Yeah, of course.
If you aren't grounded in something, whatever your faith might be,
Mm.
um, it's easy to falter. Um,
Yeah.
Easy to just throw in the towel and say, you know what, I can't do it.
Mm.
But there have been many a times where it's just been me and God just saying, okay, get me through this semester. Specifically in my second semesters when I lost my dad. I had just started the program.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you. It was the second semester. I started in the fall. He passed away that spring.
Mm.
I was in the middle of one of the hardest semesters that I
Mm.
felt like, they got harder after that one, even still. But that to me at the time was one of the most difficult semesters. I was in advanced quantitative research methods.
Mm.
And so, learning all the statistics and learning all the graphs and all the stuff. And,
Crazy.
so losing my dad during that semester, still having to come back and finish a midterm and a final exam,
Mm.
still having to continue, even in the midst of all of that. I ended up with a 4.0 that semester. I
Mhm.
don't know how. Well, I do know how. I just say, God was over me with that one too. And
Mm.
so just continuing on semester after semester. I've officially completed 69 hours. So that
Mm.
was the full, program, except for the dissertation. And so, he's getting me through that too. Just one day at a time
Yeah.
with you, one day at a time. But yeah, that would be a challenge right now. It's just getting through that part of this degree.
Man, that's awesome. It's like you stayed the path, you stayed the course even through that adversity,
Hmm.
and that says a lot about your character. Definitely,
Thank
man.
you.
That's amazing. Wow. So you're working on your dissertation. So you have that dissertation in was it counselor education?
Yes, counselor education. Hmm.
Oh my gosh. How long does it have to be a certain length long, like your dissertation, or how do they grade you on that?
It varies. Right now, my chapter one is about 18, 19 pages.
Mm.
I'm in the middle of chapter two. Chapter
Crazy.
three is currently about like nine. But then once I submit and get, the first round of edits on that one, she could say add more, take this out. So it really just depends.
Mm.
On average, you might find them once they're completed about 150.
Mm.
Some are 200 plus pages. It really just depends on the chair, how much they want from you, how much
Mm.
detail you need to give in each chapter.
Yeah.
It really does vary, but I'm aiming probably, I think I'll finish up between no more than like 180, 180 pages.
That's pretty good. Where do you get most of your research from?
There's a lot out there, like EBSCO. Uh,
Mm.
I use like quick search with the library,
Mm.
different databases, academic search complete, Google
Yeah.
Scholar, um, journals for Blacks in higher education, because my research will be involving first year African American doctoral students.
Yeah. Awesome.
Um, just different journals in higher ed as well.
Yeah.
Mindfulness, contemplative practices, because I'll also be using mindfulness interventions.
Mm.
And so, yeah, different journals like that, health and wellness. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, what's the most interesting piece of research that you found on your dissertation that you maybe you might not have known about?
The retention rates of Black students, how it starts even in high school,
Mm.
uh, even before that, like middle school, the path and the trajectory towards higher education success
Crazy.
all depends on those foundations that they receive.
Mm.
Like kindergarten, some articles would go way back to like what was their experience like in kindergarten, middle school, high school, before you get to post secondary education.
Mm.
What were those, formal experiences like? That then determines whether or not that, student feels like they are, and what my other part of research is self efficacy.
Mm-hmm.
whether or not they believe in themselves enough that they can go on to receive a bachelor's degree, and then a master's degree, a doctorate degree. It all starts with the belief in themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and whether or not they feel like they can do it, but that
Mm-hmm.
also contributes to what was their educational experience like before. And so if it wasn't a good one, if they didn't have motivation, support, encouragement from their teachers, family, all those, support systems that would normally be in place or should be in place to help you, thrive and succeed in your education, then more than likely they're not going to go. So that's why you see, they're stopping at high school. They're not really
Mm-hmm.
going on to college. If they do go on to college, um, again, talking about being first generation
Mm-hmm.
without, the knowledge or having someone having gone before to, talk to you about the process, share with you what that journey is like going into a college classroom for the first time. If you don't have that, then you see the college dropout rates, and it's just the whole cycle that continues to perpetuate itself. It's a system that
Amazing.
I think as well.
Wow. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. It seems like you're real passionate about that. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Man, so the upbringing, that comes back to upbringing. Uh,
Hmm.
that like you said, having a family around to
Right.
encourage them to do that. Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. So are there systems in place to help? I mean, I guess seems like you're on that track to help people to, attain higher education, especially in the Black American community. Is there things in place right now, would you say, that do help with that type of stuff?
So you do have certain programs like, TRIO programs, federally funded grant programs. Like the one that I work for is like Student Support Services STEM.
Mm,
So it's one that services, primarily first generation students who have a financial need or a documented disability.
mm,
That's once they get into college already. But you do have other programs who are under that same grant, under the TRIO grant of like Upward Bound. You have Talent Search. So those are the ones that are in high schools.
mm,
Um, some of the same criteria as well, targeting those specific populations.
mm,
Um, that's sort of right now what I know to exist. And
mm,
then really, hopefully in those schools having a good, middle school counselor, high school counselor, using those types of support systems as well,
mm,
um, to have those types of conversations with the students,
mm.
I think would be, some support resources that are out there to, sort of start guiding and navigating them towards the, idea or the possibility of going to college after they're done with high school.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Even if it's like, I think even if it's like some kind of like trade school or something, you know what I mean? Just some
Hmm.
type of education to help them financially later. So
Hmm.
that way they're, go ahead.
I was saying for sure, and then to even educate that, I always say realistically, a four-year institution is not everyone's thing.
Mm,
But, providing support and guidance in areas where, hey, maybe, it is going to school for electrician, plumbing. Those are also very good trades that can
mm,
still be, very lucrative in the sense of, you can support yourself financially.
mm.
Um, so yeah, also just providing advice, on, going to, community college might be, something as well, but, just encouraging them to continue on in
Yeah,
whatever that path might look like. It doesn't always have to be a four-year institution.
for sure. So did your folks like encourage you to go to because you're first generation, right?
I am.
So how did it, yeah.
So my story is kind of funny. It wasn't really something that was talked about for me.
Wow.
Um, no, it was just I want you to do well, do good, so you
Mm-hmm.
can make a living for yourself, whatever that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So I really didn't know about college. I had one cousin who graduated from college, and then I later learned that I had another one. So it wasn't something that was like discussed, talked about, not even really encouraged, so to speak.
Yeah.
The goal was to finish high school.
Mm,
And so for me, I remember it was my senior year where my high school counselor,
mm,
we were doing that last round of, you meet to set up your schedule, your last classes you're going to
mm,
take, what are your next steps,
mm.
um, what colleges are you looking into applying to? And I'm like, I haven't looked into any colleges. Um, have you started applying for scholarships? I'm like, what are scholarships? I haven't done
No.
any of that. And so she sat with me. We met a few times,
Mm.
and my mom was already deceased, and so she needed like some personal information from me and was like, if you don't mind, I really think like your GPA is really good. Like you should go to college.
Hmm.
I was like, okay, um, sure, let's do it. Like I've always been the person like I'll try anything at least once. If it's going to better me, if it's going to motivate me to do better, to succeed, to accomplish something, I'll do it.
Mm.
And so we sat and we applied for a couple of universities, and I ended up getting accepted into the university of my hometown.
No.
And so I started school that summer once I graduated
Mm.
from high school. So I've been in school since then.
Wow, man.
2010, I've not stopped the educational journey. I think that opened the doorway for me once I saw that I could do it.
Right.
And it was a struggle going through being first gen, not really knowing what college really was.
Mm.
She helped me apply for scholarships and financial aid and everything, but it still was like, okay, she's helping me do this. I'm not doing this on my own.
Mm.
Thankfully, she did help me, but it was just like, once I got there, it was rough figuring stuff out, but I made it through. And
Mm.
then I started working right after my first full time job. And then I decided, I want to keep going. And so that's how it's been since 2010. I've been
Awesome.
on this educational pathway since then.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, it's like she helped open that door for you.
Hmm.
And I like that you mentioned that you're like, if it's, I like the first time. What did you say to try something for the first time?
Yeah, like
That's
I'll try anything once. Like I'll give anything a try if it's going to help me to better myself, to help me succeed in a different area, to
yeah,
stretch my mind's capacity. I think that's always good. I've been very optimistic
yeah.
most of my life. So I'm like, why not? Let's just see how it works out. If it works out, fine. If it doesn't, I'll try something else.
Was that the thought process when you created the Reese sweets and savories?
So that really, it's sort of been in the works since I was younger.
Mm.
Um, I think back, and I just told someone else, like, I just had the other reflection of like me and my siblings used to sell out of a snowball stand.
Oh, crazy.
And so I was like, well, technically, I've been doing
Mm.
sort of some of these things ever since my childhood. I just didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing, I guess, to get to this point. So all of those foundational building customer service and
Hmm.
serving people. And then again, how I had mentioned before in my previous interview, like serving stuff at church and just doing stuff like that. All of those like foundational pieces
Hmm.
that were just sort of adding on to like what I love and enjoy doing with Reese.
Yeah,
And so I think it's just been in the works. I just didn't know when it was going to birth and come out and say, hey, this is what we're doing. Uh,
yeah.
so literally, I woke up one early morning, put everything together on a menu, talked to some friends, and I was like, hey, I think I'm going to go for it.
Hmm.
It's like, yeah, you should. About time. One of them was like, about time. I'm like, okay, I get you. Yeah, like
Yeah.
in a minute, I'm sure you've been waiting too, but it's kind of one of those better do it now than, do it while you can versus
Mm.
like, okay, keep putting it off because I have been putting it off for a while. Like, oh, I want to do something, but I'm scared. I want to do
Mm.
this, but I don't know how it's going to turn out. What if
No.
it doesn't work out? But yeah, definitely was very optimistic. I took a risk, stepped out on faith for sure, and was like, hey, we're gonna go for it. And so I'm almost a
Yeah.
year in August.
So what was one of your fears before starting it? Like what was like what were you hesitant on when you before you started it?
For me, I think just meeting people
Mm.
because of just my schedule, like, working full time, like, how am I going to put myself out there with a full time job,
Mm.
going to school full time as well at the time. I still had classes every week, you
Hmm.
know. My weekends were usually spent doing homework. So, like, how was this going to work out? Um,
Right.
how was I going to get out there and meet people? And then it was like, well, people who know people.
Hmm.
Trust your people that you know who know people.
Yeah.
So it was sort of just like, that first initial fear of like, what if I don't really, get myself out there how I want to meet people? And,
Mm.
another fear of like, what if it really just doesn't work out? Like, what if people are like, no, I'm not interested in your stuff. It's fine, you know?
Mm.
That
Yeah.
kind of thing. So just those general like self doubts, those little noises that kind of talk to you and say like, oh, you shouldn't do this because and there's a lot of reasons why you shouldn't do things, but
Mm.
and there's a lot of reasons why you should do them. And so I decided to go with the reasons why I should instead of why I shouldn't.
Wow, that's
Mm,
amazing.
Yeah, we're here.
Wow, that's a pretty cool. Did you like learn that? Did you learn that from like your folks along the way? Like, how did you figure? Like, how did you learn that? Like, the whole just doing it, even though you have these doubts, you just got to do it. You just got to try it. Like,
I
you
just
know what I
think
mean?
for me, life experiences, growing up where I'm from, you have to have some type of, optimism because things can be pretty bad. And so
Hmm.
it's really having things come at you from like a growth mindset in the sense of like, seeing the positives,
Hmm.
seeing the things that are good, even in the things that are bad, if that makes sense. So while
Okay.
certain situations may not necessarily or ideally be, all that good or, comfortable or those sorts of things, still looking within them and saying, hey, there's still at least one inkling of hope. There's like
Hmm.
one good thing that can happen out of this, even though in the midst of it at the moment it may not feel like it or look like it, there's still, hope on the other side. So
Yeah.
again, I think just my personality is just optimistic by nature. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's just sort of how I've always been, I guess.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Yeah.
um,
That's
just really
awesome.
always looking for the good in something.
Yeah, that's awesome. Excuse me. It seems like you care about the product, right?
For
You
sure.
care about people liking the product,
Yes.
and then you just care about how you present yourself to people. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it seems like that's mostly thinking about others.
For
You
sure.
know, it's like a service thing that it's
Yeah,
you want to serve people.
definitely.
Yeah. So uh, being that like serving people is like one of the things that we like to do. Do you find it difficult whenever somebody is difficult? You know what I mean? Do you encounter that stuff? How do you deal with that?
So honestly, I haven't had many of those experiences just yet. If I could think, there's probably just one
Mm,
where I was doing like I think my one of my first few pop-ups. It was still very early on, like later last year. Um, and someone comes up and like, you need to have samples on your table.
mm.
And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I did have samples earlier. I went out. I'm gauging like how much do you put out. I'm still learning, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I said, I'm so sorry. I did have samples out earlier. I hate that you kind of arrived late, you missed out, and just sort of some humor. It's like, oh man, you missed out,
Mm.
Like, well, yeah, you definitely need to have samples on your table because if I
Oh,
was if I was able to sample it, then maybe I would have bought something. And I was like, oh,
oh,
I'm
come on.
so sorry that you weren't able to sample anything today.
Mm,
Hopefully, the next time I see you, you'll be able to sample something at the next event, and so just really, I think approaching it with humor and kindness was just like, sorry I didn't have samples for you at the time.
yeah,
And I hope that the next time you see me, you're able to try something. So, you know,
yeah.
I think just being kind either way. Um, you have good customers and you have some who are, a little challenging, to say
Hmm.
the least. I still think just being kind, still, offering that, quality customer service, even if they can be a little difficult.
Mm.
Um, smiling the whole time, just being nice, I think is one way to counteract that.
It's awesome. So when are you coming out with the cookbook?
That one is it's funny. My birthday 2 years ago now. One of my really good friends from a master's program, she's like, "Hey, you're gonna need something one day to write down all these recipes, right?"
Mm.
And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. I don't have anything." She's like, "Well, what are you putting them in?" I'm like, "Honestly, it's just stuff that I remember making growing up. I've learned some new things. I just really keep everything in the notes section of my phone." So I'm like, I propped my phone up. I'm like, okay, what was that ingredient? What did I need?
Mm.
And so she's like, you need to write that down somewhere. So she actually got me like this recipe cookbook
Oh.
template, like book type thing.
Mm.
And so I told myself once I'm done with school,
Mm.
that is definitely a project that I would like to start working on.
Mm.
Quite funny. I've already played around with some templates. Um, and like design base. I think like in Canva is what I was using, just to kind of play around and see like what are some templates I could mess with just to see. But that is definitely a goal. So you
Yeah.
speaking of it right now, I'm like, okay, that's another sign. We need to go ahead and not hold off on that either. So I
Yeah,
definitely like to put a
it's like as entrepreneurs, you're never short of ideas. There's
true.
always ideas, and yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of like the spicy stuff, and you guys from New Orleans love that stuff.
Oh, I love spicy. Yeah,
Yeah.
everything
So,
is spicy.
so what kind of spicy stuff do you like from Texas? I know it doesn't go with your palate. Like sometimes you're like, okay, I can do this. What kind of spicy stuff do you like from over here?
The one thing that I have found, and I'm trying to think, I don't actually know the name of the dish to be honest, but it has like peppers, it has like different I don't know, I can't pronounce the name of the dish, it's blanking on me, but
Mm.
they're like the big green peppers, they grill them, and then usually they'll put like different like meats and cheeses, and they'll have like the sauce on the top. But I love like the red hot salsa. I'll
Mm.
put that on there, and so
Oh,
I put
crazy.
that one with the rice, the Spanish rice. So that's really good.
Mm.
Then mini tacos, of course. I
Mm.
like those. I like to put a lot of the red and green salsa on there too.
Oh, crazy.
It could be really spicy,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's probably my favorite. I can have tacos every day.
Yeah,
And
let me add some spice just so I can
yeah,
have a
I'll add
little
some
bit of home.
to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's awesome. It's awesome. So you're actually licensed professional counselor.
Counselor associate. So I'm currently pursuing hours
Mm.
to become fully licensed.
Oh, okay. So are you currently like? Is that your career? Like, is that what you're working in now? Like, is that how you make money? I guess you can say.
Not necessarily by degree, yes. Profession wise, right now, no. I'm a coordinator, but I get to use all my skills.
Right,
Um,
right.
and so I guess you can say yes and no.
Mm.
But yeah, I meet with students in my role. We have weekly, sometimes weekly, mostly monthly meetings. And so I'm able to like work with them on different issues. Um, so yeah, helping them out if they are dealing with any struggles academically, some personally and professionally as well.
Mm.
I still get to use the skills in that role, but I have to be very careful not to duplicate services on campus
Wait,
because we have a university counseling center. So
gotcha.
I would have to send students there if things got to be, I guess, too deep of an issue
Hmm.
to resolve from my office. I would have to make a referral.
Oh, wow, interesting.
Even though I could counsel them, it's like, hey,
Yeah,
you have to send them over to the university counseling center. And I'm like, hey, I'm a counselor though, but I'm
yeah.
not a counselor in that position. I'm a coordinator. So yeah, I have to just make the referral out.
Is there a common theme that occurs among students? Would you say?
Definitely academic stress. Most of the ones that I have, they're all in a STEM related field of some sort,
Right, right.
or just by degree. The courses are very challenging. They take a lot of time, a lot of rigor. And so it can be a lot of stress on them.
Yeah.
So academic stress for sure. Again, fighting through those like, can I do this? Am I really smart enough? Can I really pass these classes? So self efficacy, building that up.
So what is that self efficacy?
So that's just a person's ability to believe enough in themselves that they can accomplish whatever that goal might be, whatever that
Mm.
might be for them.
Mm.
So I want a bachelor's degree. How much do I believe in myself that I can accomplish that thing?
Oh, wow.
So a lot of them facing like self-doubt. There's lots of family issues. I have some non-traditional students, meaning they've been out in the workforce for a while. Some have married, had kids, now they're coming back for the first time.
Yeah.
um, Still with that first generation status as well. So not only are they non-traditional, this is their first time coming to a university at all. Their parents didn't go.
Mm.
So, just working through some of those things like ageism,
Mm.
where they feel like they're discriminated against because they're older,
Yeah.
than some of their peers in their classes. And so fighting through that, and building
Yeah.
them up like, hey, they can learn from you just like you can learn from them,
Mm.
sort of like equaling things out.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so there's lots of issues. But the biggest one would be the academic stress. And then time management, another one, teaching them about procrastination
Mm,
because they'll wait till the last minute to do assignments and then they're stressed out that they
mm.
won't be able to finish it in time,
Right.
those sorts of things. So, yeah, those are some of the main issues.
Wow, wow, that's awesome. So the people that will come back after working, it seems, do you think that they're coming back because they want to get a higher salary or a higher, you know what I mean? Why would they go back to school after working for so many years, you know?
Yeah, the ones that I have talked to, one student in particular, um, she was working out in the field for a while, just working. She has small children, and she's like, my children aren't seeing me anymore. Like I'm
Mm,
always at work. Well, yes, I'm making money, but my children aren't seeing me. Like I'm never home. Um, what can I do that's going to be just a temporary sacrifice, not a permanent one, such as working all the time,
mm-hmm,
that I can still go home to them in the evenings. They'll still be able to see me. And it's just temporary. Once I'm done, I'll have a flexible job. I'll still have a pretty good income.
mm-hmm,
I get to be with my kids. And so for her, it was more of like, she was tired of missing out on important family events,
mm,
just spending time with her children in general. And so it was, what can I do right now that would be just a short little time away from them,
mm,
a couple of years at most, just going to school during the day. I'm home at night. She's home with them in the evenings now. Before she wasn't.
mm,
That I could just do this for a couple of years to get me through. Once I get my degree, things would improve, and we'd still have a good steady income.
mm,
And so, that is one of the things. Some just have career changes, where they're like, I've done this for 10 plus years or so. I want to do something different. In
mm,
order to do that something different, I need this type of degree. So,
mm,
having to go back to school for it. Some require the bachelor's degree, not just an associate's or a diploma.
mm.
Um, so just different things, but definitely career advancement is one of the most common ones that I see most
Yeah, for
people
sure.
in their careers.
Wow. Yeah. I used to work out. I used to work in the oil field a lot.
Hmm.
And I would be away from my family like 3 weeks at a time. And
Yeah,
oh my gosh, I hated it
yeah.
because and I had my daughter was a baby, like 2 or 3 years old.
Mhm.
So I even thought about going back, for something for STEM. Matter of fact, I think it was engineering, and then like computer science or something.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. And we have
So
a lot of students in our program who are, engineering, computer science.
mhm.
So yeah, they're there working hard, and so just being there to support them through that is
Mm.
really what I get to do right now.
Yeah, it seems like the sciences would help.
Hmm.
Yeah, instead of like different areas of study, I guess you could say.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. So how do you not like take this stuff home with you? Like, cause I imagine you deal with a lot. I mean, you not deal with a lot. You help a lot of people, and how do you
Hmm.
not take it all home?
Yeah, that's a really common question, that even in counseling I would get asked before. Uh,
Hmm.
you do, I do. Like you hear a lot. Like I said, it's not just working with, oh, I'm stressed out about a test. There's some serious stuff that sometimes comes up.
Hmm.
Um, and for me, I'm a huge empath as well. So sometimes a student will walk in and I can immediately say, okay, let's talk. Like, what's going on? I think it, I feel it. What's going on? And then I'm like, yep, I knew it. It was heavy. And so for me, I can't assure that I never take stuff home, but I practice what's called like dropping it off on the highway.
Hmm.
So, I'll just go for a drive. And once I get to a certain point, it's like, okay, on the turnaround, whatever you were thinking about on your way over here, don't think about it on your way back because you need to leave it over here. And
Hmm.
so it's just more of like a mental dumping of like, okay, I released everything that I heard today.
Hmm.
No longer, my responsibility to carry it with me. If it does come back up, engage in some self care, whether it's journaling about it, talking to friends about it, talking to my peers about it. Like, hey, y'all, I really had this really tough situation. This is what we talked about. It was really rough, and just kind of processing those feelings. So sharing it, but just really not holding on to that because that can be a bit unhealthy mentally. not a good thing to do.
Right.
So just practicing the exercise of like releasing it, letting it go. And then if they come back with a different issue or the same issue the next day or at another point in time, still just practicing that same thing of like, all right, well, we're going to deal with it now. Once I leave work, take my
Mm,
drive, I'll ride down ocean or something,
mm,
look at the waves at, one of the parks or whatever.
yeah.
And once I feel like, okay, I'm good to go home, I leave it there and then I don't pick it back up.
Wow. Awesome.
Some stuff is a little bit easier to let go than, other things because there, like I said, there's some serious things. And so the other ones that are a bit more heavy, you process those and you seek help and support from your peers. That's what I would do.
Well, that's awesome. That's good stuff. It seems like I need to do that when I drive home from work
It
every
really
day.
does help. I mean, it really does, like a quiet drive,
Mhm.
processing what you experienced throughout your day, taking in some deep breaths along the way, incorporating some deep breathing into there.
Crazy.
Um, and then just, allowing yourself to release it, that's definitely freeing. Definitely helps me. I would say that helps me a lot.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah, I do that sometimes too. Because sometimes I'll bring my work stuff home,
Hmm.
and man, it affects my family. And oh, I hate when that happens.
Yeah. Try the
Because
drive. Try the
yeah,
drive. Just, a quiet,
yeah,
quiet drive home, letting the stuff go. Before you get out the car and go inside, leave it at the car.
leave it in the car.
Hmm.
That's cool. You're counseling me here. That's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. So you work. This is your PhD. You're almost done.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
Awesome. Congrats.
Hopefully December.
December.
Hopefully in December. That's my
Nice.
goal.
That's the goal. That's awesome, man. That's whew. First generation,
Yes.
bachelor's, master's, three first times in one shot.
Yes.
That's good, man.
Try to do
Congratulations.
all of them. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when are the next pop-ups you'll have for your sweets and savories?
Let's see. I'll have to check my calendar. The ones I have coming up are all out of town, to be honest. So I have a couple that are in Austin and San Antonio.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, the ones I have, I need to look at my calendar, but I think I'm gonna be.
Yeah, how did you get invited out there, or I mean, did you look around, or how'd that come
Yeah,
about?
so for Austin, when I went for the very first time earlier this year, it was a really great turnout. Much success there. So much so that I started getting all these like followings and
Mm.
DMs from people out in Austin.
Wow.
And so from there, I was like, well, it's a 3 hour drive. It's not that bad of a drive. Um, Let me see, you know, what it's like. I don't mind it every now and then. And so I would, get back in touch with the, organizers of these events,
Yeah.
check my calendar, of course, because, I don't want to overbook myself.
Mm.
Um, and then if I was free, I would say, okay, yeah, I'll go. And so that's pretty much how it happened. I booked some way in advance. And I'm like, oh, shoot, June is almost here. So, yeah, I'll be pretty busy next month, both in Austin and in San Antonio. But yeah, these are people who've reached out to me, inviting me to their markets. And I was like, well, I'm out of Corpus. Is that a problem? And they're like, no, we love to have you. So
Awesome.
um, that's pretty much how I got myself prematurely established there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you feel like you're gonna go full time with that, or I mean, how do you think about that?
So I've been getting that question a lot too, and I really would like to. One
Mm.
of the big goals, honestly, I would see myself in some odd years, is with the food truck. That's
Oh
one of
wow.
my ultimate goals. And so I do think at some point it probably would pick up and go full time.
Mm.
Um, if not full time, definitely something I keep doing on the weekends.
Yeah.
You know where my professional career decides to go as well.
Awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Ree. We appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, it's not a problem. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Okay. I guess I'll say goodbye. This is my abrupt stop. That's how I do things sometimes.
Okay, not a problem. Thank you.
Okay. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye.
All right, y'all. That was Renita Newton with Ree's Sweets and Savories. And yeah, check her out online. I have links in the description. If you want to support this channel, check out the merch at corpuschristioriginals.com.